Okay, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Camnet TV Breakfast Show. This morning, we do have Mr. Frank Wadia, who's going to be our guest, and he is coming from the ruling party, UPND. He is the Director General of the UPND Media Committee of the Presidential Support Program. He is here to discuss with us national matters. Mr. Wadia, good to see you and welcome.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here as always, and I'm looking forward to a great engagement.
Okay, fantastic. Remember, viewers, that we are live on YouTube and Facebook as well. Camnet TV, that's the magic name you are typing to search for us. Please join us as we delve into the nitty-gritties of our discussion. But before we go into the nitty-gritties of our discussion, we keep on monitoring the Pope's health, as most of you might be aware that the Pope hasn't been feeling well for quite some time now. And according to a statement that was issued yesterday, as of yesterday, from the Vatican, an update, it reads, the Pope Health Advert statement from the Holy See Press Office. The Holy Father's clinical condition has remained stable. So that's from the Vatican there. We'll keep on monitoring the Pope's health and we'll keep on updating you, dear viewers. Now, quickly, we go into our newspaper segment. For those that are already online, we have uploaded newspapers from various newspaper outlets. But we'd like our guest, Mr. Wadia, to just have a quick reaction to the newspapers. We start with the News Diggers, with a must, which reads with a screaming headline, "They are puppets, UPND surrendered our wealth to outsiders, Dr. Musumadi." Mr. Wadia, your quick reaction to that?
That seems to be the main message of the Socialist Party, that the UPND are puppets, which means that for them it is something personal. And actually it's not just UPND, it's President Dr. Hakainde Hichilema that they target. Because of the malice from the leader of that political party, the Socialist Party, that is Dr. Fred Membe. You can see it even in his face that he has this hatred for President Mr. Hakainde Hichilema and keeps calling him a puppet and so on. So much that a year would go without them coming up with something concrete, something that we can call an alternative to what the UPND are doing. And I think that people know what is going on, where as far as that malice is concerned, and they're ignoring that kind of stuff. We want them as an opposition to talk about their alternatives, to talk about what they would have done had they been in government. Of course, they are not talking about what they will do when they get into government, because they know that that is something that is wishful thinking.
Okay, let's go to another daily tabloid as our guest continues to react and weigh in on some of the headlines. Okay, we go straight to the Daily Mail. Now, the Daily Mail, Mr. Wadia, reads with a headline, "Chunga Gold Rush hits snag, residents disappointed as Geological Survey Department reveals mineral identified at the site is primarily iron ore." Mr. Wadia, a quick one. People wanted to catch him.
This country is blessed, and there is gold, we have diamonds, we're also supposed to have oil, so we are really blessed. And there are these celebrations that happen, the gold rush and so on, and I'm sure the people of Chunga and surrounding areas may have thought that this was it. It was not to be, but what we can assure them is that they have a responsible government in place that has ensured that all our mineral resources are safeguarded, prudently utilized for the benefit of all Zambians. So if we are going to find diamonds in Lusaka, It will not just be people in Lusaka and the surrounding areas, or indeed the location where it's found, who are going to benefit. That will be a national asset that belongs to all of us as Zambians, and the government will ensure that they come in, harness these resources, exploit them prudently, and ensure that the resources go to the national purse and distributed equitably. And since the agenda of the UPND is to grow the economy, the agenda of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema is to double the economy, because as UPND we realize that there is no way we are going to provide the essential needs of the people when the economy cannot afford it. It's the economy that has to afford it, followed of course by policies that are people-centered, that are pro-poor, to ensure that the availability of the money that becomes an occasion, that becomes a chance to serve the people better.
Okay.
So these resources that are being discovered, of course, the resources that we have already discovered and big mining companies are working, including Zambians and so on, they are going to be utilized prudently by this government, and this government is committed to continue implementing policies that will alleviate poverty in this country and ensure that the people have the good things of life.
Okay, fantastic. Now let's go to the news diggers. The news diggers comes up with an interesting headline, Mr. Bwadia. I must make mention. Now the news diggers comes up with a headline that reads, "He can't remove me. I'm sitting with both," but I won't say the other word because obviously it's not TV friendly. Our viewers will be able to read for themselves there. Then also there are two, this particular headline, then there's a sub-headline on top. After Levy, HH the only president with spirit to fight corruption. Let's start with this one that is attributed to Comrade President Winter Kabimba, where he says, after Levy, HH the only president with spirit to fight corruption, coming from the news diggers. Mr. Bwadia, do you agree?
It is there for everyone to see. And we are happy that that observation is not coming from one of us in the UPND. It is coming from people even outside the UPND, including the opposition. Those that are honest, those that are objective, are saying that this is a president who is committed to fighting corruption. And it is being fought. Now, the president is methodical, the UPND is methodical. So when you fight corruption, commitment is not enough.
Okay.
You also need to look at the instruments available, the statutes that are available for you to achieve that, to achieve your goal, to win in terms of fighting corruption. So there has been a lot of reforms, as you are aware, Zambians are aware, there have been a lot of reforms to ensure that the fight against corruption is effective. We saw in the past, even under late President Hichilema has made it clear that we need to pursue avenues, we need to have a framework that doesn't perpetuate this corruption, that doesn't take too long to conclude the cases, but not only that, a situation where you are spending less to recover whatever needs to be recovered in cases where you need to recover the assets. Unlike before, researches have been done to show that what was recovered during that time, despite the commitment of President Mwanawasa, which cannot be doubted, but more money was spent to recover the little that was recovered. The UPND's commitment, President HH's commitment, is to ensure that little is spent and more is recovered. So we are happy that we have in the opposition, we have in the church, civil society, and ordinary citizens who are seeing that this government, President Hakainde Hichilema, is committed to fighting corruption.
Okay. And because I know you've got a rich media background, Mr. Wadi. Media is being abused in some cases by the citizens.
Well, before I can talk about that, the assertions that President Hakainde Hichilema is trying to stop people from using social media.
Okay.
And some have said he has no moral right to do that because he used social media when he was in the opposition. It helped him a lot to become president. Others then quickly say, no, even now still uses social media, so he has no moral right to tell people to stop using social media. That is a straw man's fallacy. Okay. A fallacy where, Joe, you tell me something. You tell me something. For instance, that I should not beat my wife.
Okay.
That I should not beat my wife. And when I go out there to report what you said to me, I criticize you, but I change what you said to me.
Okay.
That's a straw man's fallacy. You change the variables of an argument. After changing the variables, after twisting what somebody said, then you go to town to criticize that person. And the people who may not have heard what you said to me, that you were actually asking me to stop beating my wife, that's just an example, then think that they should agree with me, when in the actual fact they should agree with you. What am I trying to say? President HH has never said to Zambians, stop using social media.
Okay.
Even when he uses that example, that expression, TikTok, 24 hours, TikTok, the president is trying to encourage people to be productive.
Okay.
To be productive. And that's important. There are some people who are on social media all the time. And why is this becoming an issue? Because they are not on social media, talking about what they do, selling their business, studying, because you can also study using social media and so on. They are on social media spreading, insulting people and so on. So it should be made very clear that the president, Hakainde Hichilema, HH, is not asking people in Zambia to stop using social media. He's encouraging them to use social media responsibly. Is social media being abused? Yes, social media is being abused. Okay. The Catholic bishops in the early statement last year bemoaned the abuse of social media. And they were bold enough to say some of those abusing social media are in fact leaders of the opposition. They go to social media, and now social media has become a very, very powerful tool. We are on social media. Whereas in the past, this TV station will have to be ordinarily on a channel, maybe DSTV, maybe Topstar, or whatever. But today you run a TV station on social media, digital platforms like that, Twitter, and so on. So we have a lot of people in the name of trying to contribute to information dissemination, participating in the democratic discourse of our country, would set up a station such as this one, primarily to decampaign the government. Okay. It's okay to decampaign the government. If the government is doing something wrong, it's okay. But if you have been paid, or you are trying to get the attention of some opposition political parties so that they can pay you, and you are deliberately misleading Zambian people about what is going on, that should be condemned. Okay. That should be condemned. So there is a lot of abuse of social media. As I said, the bishops talked about it, priests are talking about it, that is the churches, stakeholders are talking about it, and we need to continue asking people to stop abuse of social media. You see, we have a country that has enjoyed peace. Even the way we won our independence, it was not as bloody as was the case in other countries. And that's why up to now, we maintain cordial relations with our former colonial masters. Cordial relations, because we are a civilized people. That's who we are as Zambians. That's who we are as Zambians. So, the way some people are abusing social media, it can undermine our national unity, it can undermine even our security. This government, the UPND government, this president, HH, has a lot to do in this country. We have a lot of challenges. We cannot afford as a people to detract them, to begin to introduce other problems. And making the police going after those who are committing cyber crimes and so on. Let's spare the police for following criminals who are grabbing money from business people, who are the police who are pursuing criminals who are breaking into our homes, who are stealing transformers, making people think that it is load shedding when it's because some people have stolen a transformer that feeds them. But you can see that the police of late seem also to be spending a lot of resources pursuing those people committing cyber crimes. Because the police understand that if you don't deal with those, when there is chaos in the country, because of this irresponsible use of social media, we'll have a bigger problem. And people will have said you should have dealt with the root cause and not the symptoms. The civil unrest would be only a symptom of something that should have been dealt with in the first place.
Okay, let's go to one last daily tabloid, Mr. Bwalia. And I'm referring to this daily tabloid, the Daily Nation. Why? Because yesterday, opposition political parties held a press briefing from the Socialist Party to the National Liberal Party to the PF faction being led by Honorable Gideon Lubinda, to Citizens First, members from the Citizens First were there, RDC also was there, Christian Democratic Party was there, and civil society organizations represented by Mr. Brebna Changala, NDC faction being led by Madam Saboy Mboyela was there. Now this particular headline reads, and I quote, "Opposition threatens civil disobedience." Mr. Bodi.
First, talking about the list of the people who held the press conference, Zambians know very well that this was not an undertaking where the church was involved, where civil society in this country was involved.
Okay.
If I come from the church and as an individual, I may even have a position in one civil society organization, I go and align myself to such a group. I cannot claim that my church, or indeed the collection of the organizations that of which one I belong to, are part of that press conference.
Okay.
There is no church in this country. There is no civil society in this country that is going to agitate civil disobedience or any kind of chaos in this country this time around. There is totally no justification.
Okay.
There is totally no justification. We expected that the opposition will get together.
Okay.
Talk about load shedding. If President Hakainde Hichilema had a press conference yesterday like they did, and did not touch on load shedding, you would have seen how they would have gone to town. The president should talk about what the people are going through. That's what they want to hear. Load shedding, the flooding that is happening among our people and so on. Those are the things that the opposition equally should be talking about. And doing their best to project themselves as a government in waiting. By offering solutions, alternatives. And we expect them even to enhance the culture of engaging government constructively.
Okay.
Especially that we have a president that has an open door policy. a president that is willing to work with everyone in this country to find solutions to the problems that we have. So that agenda is not going to be welcomed by the Zambian people. The Zambian people want President HH to be supported to deal with the problem of load shedding,
Okay.
to deal with the problem of food insecurity, to deal with the problems in terms of unemployment, create more jobs,
Okay.
to ensure that government works effectively, to ensure that government builds more hospitals, more clinics, which means more jobs, to ensure that government attracts more investment, local as well as foreign investment in various sectors, so that the private sector can play a bigger role in creating jobs. That's what the Zambian people are looking forward to. And when they listen to a leader of an opposition political party who is speaking along those lines, they listen. But when they hear an opposition political party leader calling President HH a puppet, then the Zambian people are saying, how is that going to change our situation in terms of inadequate power?
Okay.
Is that going to put solar panels at Kariba Dam or indeed at Kafue Gorge? Is that going to give more money to Mamba Collieries so that they can produce more electricity? Is that going to make KCM invest more in that mine? Is that going to quicken the pumping out of water at Shaft 28 in Wansha? No. So that politics of name calling is long gone. And if the Socialist Party chooses that route, it's a blessing to us, because Zambians are not interested in that. Zambians are interested in the kind of leadership that offers solutions to the problems that they have. And some of the problems are so basic. You remember yesterday I had a chat with you. I told you I live in State Lodge. To come from State Lodge to here, and the program was starting at 8, I should have given myself, and I did, about an hour, so that I would be here as per my custom 30 minutes before the program.
Exactly.
30 minutes before the program, to adjust, sometimes ensure that once we are seated here, I don't have to say, oh, I'm under pressure, I need to leave the program. So you need all that. But to come from my place to here, around 7 hours somewhere there, you have a lot of traffic. Bauleni, American school area starting from there. Then when you come to the junction at the roundabout, a lot of traffic all the way up to here. What is that telling us? It is telling us that 10 years from now, perhaps 10 years is too far, just a few years from now, we are going to have a big crisis, even on this road, because of the too many vehicles that have come in the country. And the vehicles are coming in every day. And yet people are still trying to build closer to the road. Our children are going to need 4 lanes on that road. Now, that's a very insignificant road when we compare to other roads in Lusaka and other parts of the country. But I'm using that example to show that we have a real problem. And these are the problems the government should be thinking about. These are the problems that we want to occupy the mind of President HH, and plan not only up to the end of his 2 terms, 2031, but to plan beyond that for his children, for his grandchildren, for our children, our grandchildren, to plan for them.
Okay.
And the UPND is a crop of politicians who are not thinking about themselves, thinking about few years when they think we will be in government. We are leaders. Following the example of President Dr. Hakainde Hichilema, we are leaders who are looking beyond.
Okay.
The problems we are facing today, some of them could have been resolved by previous administrations, including the floods that we are having in Kanyama and so on. The UPND has said to itself, we should not be blamed for some problems in the future that we could have resolved earlier. And that's what the president is concentrating on. And we want to continue praying for him. We want to continue encouraging him as Zambians do that. And we know Zambians are supporting this president.
Okay. Now, talking about President Hakainde Hichilema, I know at a later stage we'll delve into load shedding in depth, Mr. Bwaliam. But talking about President Hakainde Hichilema, let's go back to Friday, where he had the State of the Nation address to Parliament and the nation. Mr. Bwaliam, what were your key takeaways from that presidential address?
Let me begin by saying a few things about the State of the Nation address, SONA, but you need to add a clarification there in terms of the application of national values, as dictated by, I think, Article 92 of our Constitution. Why am I trying to underscore that? It's because that is what sets the tone. That's what gives the scope of that address. It's in fulfillment of that constitutional requirement. So this is not an address where the president is at liberty just to pick anything that he wants to talk about. No, it has to be in line with the prescription in the Constitution to give a report on progress made, including challenges in the application of national values. So, as a person who is familiar to, for instance, paper writing, when you're writing a paper, you have a table of contents. And if it's a dissertation and so on, it's going to be approved by your supervisor. So you can't write about anything that you want. You have to follow what has been approved, that framework. So the president has to report on specific things that touch on national values, issues of morality. The other reason why we are underscoring this is that some people want to criticize the president and, of course, rubbish that statement because, according to them, he didn't talk about certain things they expected him to talk about. When the president is expected to talk about what the Constitution prescribes, when he touches on issues of the economy, job creation, and so on, it's because some of the vices that we see in our society are as a result of the deplorable conditions, economic conditions that some of our people find themselves in. And from that angle, the president would talk about, for instance, empowerment that is available, how the government is helping people. He'll talk about CDF as a game changer and so on. But we have to emphasize that it is from that angle. It is from that angle. So when you talk about, some people are saying, no, the president has not said anything new. Even next year, the president will need to report on gender-based violence. And he cannot become creative so that he can have a nice speech that people can praise. No, he just needs to speak the truth. And what Zambians know is that the president doesn't go into the compounds to check what is happening where GBV is concerned. No. There are institutions, some of them non-state actors, who make data available to government through relevant ministries. And that information is processed, finds itself on the table of the president, and the president is informed and he sees we have a problem here, we have some more challenges here, we have not done well, and so on, and a speech is prepared. The president goes through it, that's the process, and he thinks that certain things have been put in a manner, he doesn't agree because he has this information, and there is editing back and forth, and the president owns that statement and comes to report to the Zambian people through their elected representatives in the parliament. So when the president talked about, for instance, some people not paying back the money that they are getting as loans through CDF and other institutions, it's because the president has been informed and figures have been given to him. And this should be a matter of concern to him personally as president, but to the country as a whole. And the president has a duty, a responsibility to warn all of us that if you are going to borrow this money and you don't pay back, you are depriving the next person who equally wants to borrow money, be assisted to grow their business. Maybe this person, the business that they do is that they have a mobile money booth But this person has realized that in fact there is more money in food processing. If only I could buy a machine that would help me make sausages and so on. So they want to also benefit, to get that loan, expand their business, and that's how you grow an economy. Encouraging even your own people to become more productive, to expand. Now, we are in a country, of course, because of the inflation and the weakness of our kwacha, where borrowing is very expensive.
Okay.
The interest rates are very high. So government comes in at the right time to make more money available to the citizens to borrow at no interest, or indeed low interest.
Okay.
Joe, you know very well that most businesses that are thriving, including some of the multinational corporations that we see, at one time borrowed and continue to borrow. Mamba Corals generates electricity. And you saw last year and the year before, the president taking it personal to try to help them secure a loan, $300 million US, in order for them to do that expansion and give us an extra 300 megawatts of power, as part of all that big agenda of resolving the problem of load shedding. So you can see that even that company that is doing very well, to expand was very difficult. It was very difficult to get a loan financing. And one of the reasons is that, of course, with the issues of climate change, greenhouse gases, if you are going to be burning coal to generate electricity, there are very few multinational lending institutions that are going to give you money for such a project. But we are at a situation which is a crisis in terms of inadequate power, and the president made sure that Mamba Corals was assisted to get that $300 million loan. The point I'm trying to underscore is that even these big companies that are putting up big projects worth billions of dollars and so on, many of them are borrowing.
Okay.
Even banks are borrowing from one another, because this client who deposited so much money wants the money and they don't have that money at that time. That's why you have all these terms about overnight lending and things like that. But when it comes to our people, it's very expensive to borrow from a bank. Very, very expensive. That's why you have seen too many adverts of companies advertising loans and so on, and talking about how flexible, how good their terms are and so on, because few people are actually getting money from these institutions because the interest rates are very high. So when government comes in, you expect that the citizens are going to do their best to pay back, and more people can benefit. That's one of the issues the president talked about. Of course, he talked about GBV, the violence that continues to be witnessed in a domestic level, especially, and this being March, it is something that is timely. So even next year, the president will need to report. If GBV will have gone down at that time, the president will report as such. If it will have gone up, the president will report. If something novel, some development has happened in that space, the president will report.
Okay. Okay. Now, let me take you to Southern Province, Mr. Wadia. This particular development has been received with...
you can take me to Southern Province on condition that you actually take me there, because I enjoyed myself on Saturday.
Okay, and fantastic. It's good that you are there as well. And this particular subject I'm bringing up, Mr. Wadia, it has been received with mixed reactions. I'm sure you are aware. The installing of Madam Patricia Scotland as Chief Wutambo in Monze as head woman.
Head woman,
Yes.
Senior head woman.
Senior head woman. This has been received with mixed reactions from some quarters of society. But you are there, and I would like you to react to this.
Thank you. As UPND, the first thing we want to say is that we are happy that this has been received with mixed reactions, because that confirms that we are a vibrant democracy.
Okay.
That confirms that we are human beings who have continued to exercise our intellectual capabilities, who have continued to enjoy our freedoms in a democratic country, freedom of expression.
Okay.
And understanding that our views, divergent though they may be, are going to be respected.
Okay.
So this is something that should be celebrated. I say so because some people, when they say it has been received with mixed reactions, want to make it sound like negative. It's not negative, it's positive.
Okay.
It's positive. And when people comment in a divergent view, government listens. The president listens. Because, Joe, no matter how well-intentioned a project may be, there may be one or two things that you could have overlooked. There may have been one or two things that perhaps you could have done better. And when you mean well, such as President HH means well and his government, you listen. That's why you have not heard anybody from government trying to, speak in an arrogant manner to respond to some of the sentiments that have come up. Where necessary, they are explaining. So it was wonderful in Bwengwa to witness the installation, the honoring of Madam Patricia Scotland as a senior head woman. And I think all the head men there, of course, if you say all the head men, then all of them have to be men. All those traditional leaders at that level are men. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I think she would be the only woman. And I've met Madam Patricia Scotland personally. I've had a chat with her, even discussing issues when I was High Commissioner to Australia, discussing issues of development, national stability and unity in Zambia. Okay. So that was something that was good, that should be celebrated. And the president said certain things that are so important, but of course some people now are focusing on irrelevant issues. The president talked about the commitment of the Zambian people, even in attaining independence. How the people of Mala, the people of that area, were meeting in the night with the national leaders from other parts of the country, raised money to facilitate the travel of those freedom fighters, continuing to engage the colonial masters, continuing to lobby for our independence. Again, underscoring the fact that we are one Zambia, one nation. And he mentioned various names, Changufu, Lechangufu Kaunda himself, Nalumino Mundia, and all these people.
Okay.
So for Madam Patricia Scotland coming to that space, that was something that should rekindle, something that should bring alive some of those memories, some of those historical events that our children may not be aware of or may forget. So we don't think in terms of the actual event, that gesture, there's something that somebody can really want to criticize. Okay. You have a chief here, Senior Chief Musonda, who honors this lady, allow me to call her a lady, this lady, for her contribution to national development, to national unity, to the stability of this country. And I am trying to underscore those words, because I've heard some people saying, no, how has she contributed to stability of this country? How has she contributed to national unity and so on? She has.
Okay.
She has. This is a lady who came to Zambia at a very critical moment, when the front runner, leader of an opposition political party that had become so popular, was incarcerated and charged with treason. Okay. So he was on death row, because that is the ultimate punishment for treason. She came, engaged the government then, leading to the release and the end of that case of this leader. And when the elections came in 2021, it was very clear that Zambians had decided as far back as that time to remove the PF. And if the PF had not released this leader, we shudder to think that we could have had problems in this country. So when you intervene in a situation like that, it is in order to say, perhaps remotely, but not even remotely, but directly, that you have contributed to the stability of that country. There's no doubt about it. So this chief decides to honor this national icon, this leader, who is actually one of us, because she's African. And she said herself, taken from Africa to the Caribbean, and then now she's Secretary General, of course, outgoing of the Commonwealth. So honors this lady for that role that she played. The honoring is not only for what was done before, but also for what should be done in the future. That she continues to work with us as a senior head woman in that space in Zambia, and by so doing, actually make her more a friend of Zambia and part of us. So when I bump into her at some airport or wherever, I'm going to see one of the senior head woman in Zambia. Okay. So I identify with her because of that role that she played. So the honoring was in order. No one can stop the chief from doing what he did, especially that it was the right thing. Even the honoring that we saw during that investiture ceremony, that was perfectly in order. Okay. We have had in this country, we have had a musician, may he so rest in peace, who sang a song that advantaged the PF, then in the opposition, and there was very much PF. You remember the red card during that time, and when that song was done, it became a campaign flagship song, and we used it as PF that time. And when Michael Sata became president, Zambians will remember how the man was honored, and he kept talking about it, how Sata honored him because of that role that he played. What would stop any president? What would stop the Zambian people from honoring a person such as Madam Patricia Scotland for what she did? Okay. For what should stop that? Nothing, of course. But of course, as I said, we are a democracy. We accept divergent views. Some are going to be genuine, and we will learn something from what they say. So at the next time something like this has to be done, government officials take into consideration those sentiments, but others will do it just out of malice. As the Bembas say,
okay. Okay, as we progress in our program, please do call us on the number that is displayed on your TV screen. 0973-8527-00 is the number you are coming on. I have with me Mr. Frank Waya. He is coming from the UPND. He is Director General for Media, and we are discussing national matters. Now, Mr. Waya, as we begin to wind up or coming to nearing the end of our program, let me bring you back to, let me take you back to yesterday again. You mentioned something that has to do with political parties, leaders. My question is, does Zambia have a formidable opposition political party? Because there has been this argument saying that the opposition political parties are fragmented. So I want to find out from you, coming from the UPND, having been in politics, having interacted with some of these politicians in these political parties, does Zambia currently have a formidable opposition political party to the UPND?
What we need to look at as UPND is whether our retaining power in 2026 will be because the opposition is weak or not. Okay. And I'll tell you, the sentiments in the corridors of UPND are not along those lines.
Okay.
The question that we're asking ourselves, how well are we doing to save the Zambian people that they can renew our mandate in 2026? This is not about whether the opposition is strong or not. For us, it's about whether we are doing enough to save the Zambian people.
Okay.
Issues of load shedding, issues of unemployment, issues of the cost of living. These are the things we're talking about. Issues of floods, issues of more support to farmers to ensure that our economy rebounds in view of what is expected to happen in the agriculture sector and the energy sector. These are the things that are preoccupying our thinking. These are the things that are on the table of the president and the ministers. Whether the opposition is strong or not, it's none of our business.
Okay.
The only concern we have there is whether they are engaging government, they are engaging the UPND in a constructive manner and even offering solutions. We dream about a time when in this country the president will, in a statement about development and so on, mention a project that has started inspired by an intervention, a letter that was written to him by a leader of an opposition political party.
Okay.
That's the space we are looking forward to. That's the situation we are looking forward to. But simply saying he's a puppet. No, they have failed. Yeah, Wakangiwa, it's not. I was in the opposition as well. And sometimes those in the opposition, even myself when I was in the opposition, were tempted to make these statements. It's part of politics.
Okay.
No, they have failed. No, they have, and so on. What are you proposing? What are you proposing? So the UPND is coming back in 2026 and beyond because of the faithfulness that we have demonstrated. Yes, we promised a lot. And no one should be punished for promising a lot. Because when you promise a lot, it means that you have set the bar very high. Okay. It means that you'll be pushing yourself to realize, to get to that bar. So when you're hiring a coach, whoever that may be, it could be Mourinho or whoever, and your team is not doing well, you go and hire a coach that says, I'm going to do this. Don't blame him. Because those are the high standards he has set.
Okay.
And that's why some people say, don't aspire to become like St. Peter, because you may end up like Judas. Okay. Aspire to be as good as God himself. Maybe you may end up like St. Peter. We promised a lot, we know. And we are doing a lot. And that is pushing us. Because whatever was promised is there. And that's why the president will not stop firing some public officers, including ministers, swapping them to realign to ensure that what we promised the Zambian people is achieved. Of course, some promises have already been fulfilled. Few examples can be mentioned. Fixing the mining sector, that has been done.
Okay.
Fixing the debt situation in terms of debt restructuring, that has been done. If you talk about meal allowances for university students, now I think 7 universities, if I'm not mistaken, that has been done. So the impression should not be created that there were 100 promises and none of those have been fulfilled.
Okay.
And even those that have not yet been fulfilled, Zambians know that you cannot fix some of these problems within 3 years. We cannot fix these problems within 1 year. Why am I saying 1 year? Because even a few months after UPND forming government, people were saying, no, this was promised, you have failed to do this, you have failed to do this. You can't. So we are relying heavily on the alertness of the Zambian people, on Zambian people being alert, enlightened politically, economically. We are relying very much on that.
Okay.
As we perform. The mining sector, as I said, has been fixed. Mopani is back online, working very well. People being employed, suppliers paid, contractors and so on. And we want that mine because now we have a higher stake than never before, We have a higher stake in that mine. So when people say, no, we shouldn't have brought another foreigner, we should have taken over the mine, you see, even China had a lot of countries coming to China to produce their goods from China. And that's why when you saw some products, including spares of vehicles, aircrafts, and so on, made in China, it's not by the Chinese.
Okay.
It's by the Brazilians, it's by the Americans, by the British, and so on, working there. And through technology transfer, the Chinese learned how to own that technology and they come up with their own appropriate technology initiatives, and now these companies are coming back from China. The Chinese are doing it themselves. You've seen the trucks now, these trucks and so on and so on. Those are being produced by the Chinese themselves. But before, it could have been Volvo, Freightliner, trucks being produced by foreigners in China. So we have to work with these foreigners. I hate to say these foreigners because it sounds negative, but just to say the people are coming from outside, we have to work with them on a partnership. Sometimes because we don't have the financing that they would bring on table. Sometimes we may not have the technology, but we know that in terms of mining, we are of age. Many Zambians are working in Germany, they're working in Chile, having been trained by Kaunda, by ZCCM, and so on. So we are moving in the right direction. More stake in Mopani.
Okay.
If KCM would default on what they promised and the basis for which that's the data, KCM was given back to them after that issue was resolved, then government would be justified to take away the mine and increase our stake. For now, even if President Hakainde Hichilema said, no, you guys get out, we are getting back the mine, you have not solved the problem. They will go to Zambian courts. If it doesn't work, they will go to the international court. And the president is very clear. We are not going to mine in courts. We are going to mine in open pits. We are going to mine underground. That's a promise fulfilled. This government means well. You can see it, but things have not been easy. Things have not been easy. And even previous governments faced some of these challenges. Perhaps not to the levels that we have faced them as UPND, and want to be specific here in terms of drought.
Okay.
Drought really hit us hard. Drought is responsible for a lot of economic challenges that we have in this country. The main driver of cost of living is, of course, energy, fuel, and electricity. The fact that we didn't have enough electricity and we still are not generating enough electricity, we know the economic impact that it has had. And this was very difficult. If that were not the case, after achieving debt restructuring, we were not going to be in this space this time around, if that were the case. Unfortunately, this is an act of God. We had drought, but we also need to hasten to say, fortunately, it has rained well in the last few months. It has rained very well in the last few months. People are telling us about the water that is making its way from the Zambezi catchment area, and we should be expecting much of that water getting to Kariba Dam in the next few months.
Okay.
Because you see, even this water that we need in the Kariba Dam to generate power, we have no capacity to offer prayers that the water moves quickly.
Okay.
God's plan, the way nature is designed, it works on its own terms. You can't even buy big pumps to make sure that that water can reach the Kariba Dam as quickly as possible. And if you succeeded in doing that, you'll be creating another big problem.
Okay.
Because you'll be bypassing the wisdom of nature. That water is moving. And very soon we are going to have enough water in the Kariba Dam and that will continue increasing the availability of electricity. In my area, of course, sometimes we have power for 2 weeks without any interruption. But I don't like to talk about this because the first person who is going to call me is my mother to say, but what was the situation when you came here and you stayed with us in Kwacha East? Power was coming at 23 hours, and then by 04:05 we didn't have power. I would still argue with my mother, and I enjoy that. She's like my friend now. She's an old woman. I would still argue with her to say, at least your food is frozen, which was not the case in a few weeks ago. It wasn't the case. Now the food in her fridge is frozen. Now when she's talking about, or she's making a meal for you, you see her going to the deep freezer and bringing out something that is frozen. Because at least they have power guaranteed, unless there's a fault every day, 23 hours to 04.
Okay.
So when a child wants to open the deep freezer, my mother would say, fiala sumunuka. You have to preserve the food. And so, in short, what I'm trying to say, of course, on a lighter moment, but in short, what I'm trying to say is that there's an improvement. This government is on course. The goodwill can never be doubted. Commitment to save the people cannot be doubted. If that were the case, we would not be talking about social cash transfer as it is today, enhanced. We will not be talking about cash for work. And some people now want to be saying no work for cash, because you see 15 of them with a few women there, only one shovel and maybe one hoe, and they're clearing a drainage, and the rest are on their phones, or indeed the rest are just chatting. We don't want to see that. We want, when ministers drive past a group that is doing a cash for work project, sees everyone busy working. If it means everyone coming with a hoe, with a shovel, and do a job within 1 hour and disappear, better you do that than do that work in 6 hours or 4 hours, taking turns and creating the impression that you may not be working. Because some people are saying, money, the government is just wasting money, there's nothing they're doing. But you know yourselves, the plan that you are using, at the end of the day, you are going to do that work. But if you can all come with a hoe or whatever tool you are using, quickly do the job and get off that site, even better. So that people don't think that people are not working, they're just eating free money. Because that is not free money. It's money that the government has made available to support all of us who are vulnerable and would be helped to cross the line, to stay afloat with that kind of support.
Okay. Mr. Bwadia, I take it those were your last words, seeing that we've run out of time. But, okay, let me give you a minute to conclude.
To say to the Zambian people, you have a president that loves you. You have a president that means well for this country. You have a president who is experienced. You have a president who has settled in the job and knows what needs to be done. A president that has the right diagnosis of the problems of this country. All that we now need is to support him, because we have managed to get the vehicle out of the ditch.
Okay.
We have pushed the vehicle. The vehicle has started. Okay. But it can't stop just there. It will move a bit, stop, and then ask you to come and get on board. That's what has happened. So the vehicle was gotten out of the ditch. We pushed it. The driver started it. The engine is running. But it's a bit far. So we have now to make our way, go and sit, and it takes us to the destination. The right destination, going in the right direction. That's the situation in this country. And we know that there are many Zambians who understand the correct situation, and they're doing everything possible to pray for us, to pray for the president, to pray for the ministers, pray for those who work in public offices, Ministry of Finance, Agriculture, and so on. Because at the end of the day, it's one Zambia, one nation. We love one another. We develop this country for ourselves and our children.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Bwadia. And thank you, the viewers out there, for having joined us on this particular program. My guest this morning was Mr. Frank Walia. He is Director General of the UPND Media Committee of the Presidential Support Program. And I've been your host, Joe Smarter is my name. We'll see you when you see us. Good morning and God bless.
Thank you.